Hello and welcome to Enneagram 5 Live.
Hey, what's up?
So we used to call this After Hours. That was a stupid name, but we went with it for a couple of years.
And then we finally got our shit together.
Yeah. And now we're just naming it Enneagram 5 Live. So the original goal with kind of doing live streams was to have a stream just inside of our community that we host. And then we decided, hey, yeah, and a big part of that too was to lower the stakes for us to get comfortable with live streaming.
Yeah.
And then the more comfortable we got with it, we were like, hey, we'd like to open up this conversation to a wider audience. So we started streaming across the socials, and that's what we're doing right now. So if you're joining us, why don't you post a comment and just say hi. Let's see. Irene Teaches says, hello. Hello.
Hey, Irene. Glad you're here.
So we're going to do a bit of a different format than we've done in the past. Heidi also says hello. Hello, Heidi.
Hey, Heidi.
So we actually have an agenda, and I just realized that I completely forgot to make like a slide that shows
I was
what
just
the agenda
thinking,
is, so we can see something visual.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I also can't share my screen right now without having to restart the browser because Chrome. So so we're not going to do that, but I can tell you what the agenda is. We've got a couple of announcements, just kind of some shopkeeping stuff, some updates on what we're doing, which is exciting. Then we'll do what we call red, yellow, green, which is what we've done in After Hours, in every episode of After Hours. And then we've come up with some new segments here. The first one is current curiosities. So we're going to share something that we've started researching in the last couple of weeks, and whether it's worth continuing or worth dropping, and invite you guys to participate in that. And then we're going to talk about the myth that fives can't be expressive or outgoing. So we'll unpack that a bit. Then we'll play a little game of Would You Rather. And then the last segment is called Growth versus Comfort. And so we'll share something that we are trying to get better at, even though our fiveness is fighting against that. So all that to say, we'll start off with the announcements here, which is that if you haven't seen the post that I made on Instagram and the emails I've sent out, I got laid off this month. And I'm actually really excited about it because that means that I'm now going all in full time on Enneagram 5. This is something that we have been wanting to do. We've always had a much grander vision for this. And every time we started to get some momentum on going, like doing stuff outside of the podcast, life always got in the way, usually our jobs. But now I don't have a job. So now this is my job. And so I am doing this full time, which is really exciting. It's been really fun. And with that, I launched a newsletter. So if you haven't seen that, or you haven't signed up for that yet, there is a... Oh, man, it erased my thing Okay, we're going to have to get our production system worked out a bit here. If you go to enneagram5.com/newsletter, then you can sign up for that. And I send it out every Saturday morning. We focus on strategies that help you kind of get out of your head and actually enjoy life as a five. So sign up for that. And then the other big announcement that we have is that we are making changes to this podcast. And so basically the way that we used to do is we had the Enneagram 5 podcast. That was, the podcast you all know and love. And then we had our After Hours podcast that was just for the premium subscribers within the community. We moved away from that premium subscriber model. And so we're no longer doing the After Hours podcast. And as part of that, and so that means that we are bringing in these live episodes into the main podcast. So that's change number one. Change number two is we're getting rid of seasons. So we, the episodes, the way we've been doing them, are they take a lot of work. They're highly produced, which is a lot of fun, but also it's hard. It's hard to keep up with when we had other full-time jobs, and so we started doing that in seasons so that we could kind of have a break between. We could batch stuff together, but we always felt like we lost the momentum towards the end of the season in terms of if we were just getting like great conversations started with everyone in the community and online, and then it kind of would die out in between seasons, and then we missed everybody too. And so we're going to be doing from here on out week to week in terms of episode releases on the podcast, but they'll look a little bit different. So we'll still do the format that you're used to. Right now we're planning probably once a month for those, and those will be the more exploratory, deep diving on a topic and just sort of unpacking what it's like to explore that aspect of life as a 5. And then we'll also be doing these live episodes probably once a month and bringing those in. And then on a weekly basis, we'll be doing a more short form podcast that's going to be mostly just me. I'll probably pull in some clips from some other conversations that we've had with Cody or with Sam. And those will be focused more on growth. And so a lot of the feedback that we've gotten is, with the main podcast, it's, everyone has said like how much it's helped them feel like they're not alone, help them understand themselves better. But then once you kind of really start to get to know yourself better, the next question is, okay, now how do I move forward? How do I grow? And so that is what these episodes are going to be focused on. And I'll be sharing kind of more in depth on my journey over the last decade, because the person that I was 10 years ago is orders of magnitude different than the person that I am today. And then I'll be sharing kind of the different strategies and tips that I've learned along the way to kind of help you avoid some of the pitfalls that I have I had to learn the hard way. So those are all the announcements. Lots of big changes, even more stuff coming down the pike that we'll share in the next couple of months. But for now, that is it. And I feel like I've been talking for like 5 minutes straight. So Cody, say something.
I guess you kind of have actually for 8 minutes.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next segment then.
Okay.
Which is red, yellow, green. Cody, you go first.
I am.
How you feeling?
I am yellow today. I've been doing a lot. I've been in a month-long thing that I do every year called Februariters. You've heard me talk about it on the podcast if you've been listening for any amount of time, really. And this year has been really, really great, and also really, really hard. And it's just exhausting when I'm also doing other things like getting geared up for these big podcast changes, and my daily job is also picking up work right now and picking up speed with things. So it's just been more stressful than I would like for it to be. And then of course today was a particularly long day at work, and just a lot happened and all at once. And as I'm sure we can all relate to, I don't handle a lot of things coming at me all at once very well. And so I'm glad to be here. So I won't say I'm red, but I think leading up to doing this tonight, I went from red to yellow. I'll say that.
Awesome.
So, on the upswing.
Okay. Yeah.
How about you?
There.
Yeah, red, yellow, green.
Yeah, I am green. And I also just realized that I found my little banner that I made to subscribe to the newsletter.
So there it is.
There
we got to work on the aesthetic, though.
I know. Yeah. We've got a lot to work on in terms of branding. That's definitely on the list. I've honestly, it has been a profound change for me. And I know that job transitions can be scary. That was not this for me. It's like as soon as I found out that I was going to be laid off, it was instant clarity. It was like, okay, I know exactly what I need to do. I didn't even question it. And that was so freeing and exciting. And since then, I've just kind of been on a rampage in terms of tapping into creative energy and producing stuff. I've been doing a lot of stuff kind of behind the scenes that'll come out over the next couple of months. and really just, well, for one thing, like the baseline that I was operating at in terms of just sort of general anxiety that was usually stemmed from my job, it was usually between like 7 and 10 maybe. And now that's gone down to like 1 or 2 maybe.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Except for today, which we can talk about later. But yeah, it's been amazing. Like I've been almost kind of rediscovering parts of myself and letting myself really just explore what it means to create a life that is tailored to me and how I would structure life. And, obviously I can't remove all constraints, nor would I want to, because, I have a family and there are things that I want to do, but just within those constraints, exploring what it looks like to wake up and not have a job dictating where I spend my time and energy has been incredible. And so I'm probably super green. I don't know. I don't know if there's another color that would accurately describe it, but yeah, I've been doing really well. Now it hasn't come without its ups and downs in terms of emotional roller coaster, which is something we'll get into later. But in general, I've been doing really well and I'm feeling good right now.
That's cool. Yeah. Next question. What color are you on the spiral dynamics scale then? We could go above green that way. Anyway.
I never remember what those are, what the colors are.
Yeah. Well, and it depends on the model. They change. I've learned.
Right. Okay. All right. So next segment is current curiosities. So Cody, share with us something that you've recently started researching or something that's caught your attention, and tell us about that. And if anyone who's listening wants to share as well, drop in the comments something that you've been interested in lately as well.
Yeah. So when you narrow it down to just this week, it gets really ridiculous because like there's mainstays, right? Like I'm always looking up things on like music engineering that I've been going really deep diving in, like so much that I get lost in the weeds and have to like reel myself back in. And definitely think that's worth keeping. I've been more into ChatGPT, which we both have been talking about that a lot. And just because of how I am and what I'm into, it tends to be that I find myself like lost and overwhelmed these days in like the general political landscape. So I find myself listening to too many things and deep diving on different topics and stuff way too much, and which used to be fun and now it's just making me sad. And so I think that's something I'd like to drop.
Yeah.
But the big thing for this week, the main focus, here it is. This is the headliner. I have had a reignited interest, I'll say, to keep it to like downplay it a little, in buying some Birkenstock clogs. So I've been like,
of all the things I thought you would say, that was not anywhere near.
I know. I've been ready for
list.
this one all day. I've been ready to say it. I've been so excited because I knew you wouldn't know at all what I was talking about. But the reality of it is that I have I've been like nightly staying up reading. Should I go with suede or leather? How long does it take to break in suede versus leather? I don't really think I like the suede look. The leather looks way nicer and definitely adult. The suede looks like something I'd wear in high school. So this is my thought process during all of this. And then I was like, but then there's the wide versus the narrow, and then there's some studies say that Birkenstocks are bad for people with flat feet because it doesn't support an arch support, and like healthy muscle development. And so I started going way deep into this, and then like yesterday I was like, yeah, I think this is a waste. I'm not gonna do it. And then today I'm like, I think I'm gonna get some tomorrow. So Who even knows? Honestly, who knows what I'm gonna do? I think that was that's not something that I should neither keep or drop. It was just we all relate, right? Like we do these things. I couldn't help it. I do that with now. I do it. I spent a lot of my life not looking into things when I wanted to purchase them, music equipment things, because I didn't know better. I was young and stupid. If I and the internet wasn't quite as developed when I was like a teenager as I feel like it is now, and is easily accessible to find information. And I think that I just didn't do it, and I made so many bad choices. And of course, I learned from them, but it was expensive, expensive mistakes.
Right.
So now I go really deep before I spend a single cent on every possible angle of something that I can learn about it, and that includes apparently Birkenstock clogs. Which, if anybody's curious, I decided to go with the dark leather pre-oiled ones. And apparently there's a thing you can like, there's a hack that if you put really thick socks on and then dunk them in water and then wear the wear the shoes for a little while, you would think that'd be like gross for them, but apparently it softens the footbed to mold quicker and stretches the leather faster, so it like fits you better. So there you go.
Wow.
The more you know.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Pre-oiled.
Pre-oiled.
You know, like you oil
Oh,
leather
man.
and it's pre-oiled. It
Yeah.
comes already oiled. That's what that means.
I got to
say-
be honest. I don't even know what to say to that. Like,
Well, they're back in
It's not what I
style,
was
and that's what got them back on my radar. You know, I loved them in high
okay.
school, and I had them forever until I wore them through a flood, and then they fell apart. So, but I love
yeah,
them.
I never had any. I've looked. I will admit, I have looked at them just in terms of, you know, it's summertime and you're trying to figure out like, I don't really want to wear hot shoes all the time.
Right. They're not that hot though.
Yeah. Well, no, that's what I'm saying is like looking at alternatives of
Oh,
what I could
sure.
wear on my feet
Oh,
during the summer,
yeah.
and it has entered that matrix of, you know, buying decisions, but
And see, I'm a
never quite got where you are with
self-preservation.
it.
Yeah, and I'm a self-preservation 5, so like it's who gives a shit what it looks like? Comfort and convenience. You slide your foot in, and it has room for my wide ass foot, and I'm good to go.
Michael says that he's jealous because he only has 3 years during the year that he could wear those, or 3 months during the year he could wear those. Yeah.
Yeah, I disagree. I think you can wear them all the time, unless you're in like 15 feet of snow. I guess that's possible. I guess if you live in a cold place, it's probably harder to wear them. But yeah, here it's like pretty much mild always. It's like in between. It never really gets that cold or hot, so it's perfect. What about you?
My current curiosity is not that. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like we talked about, I'm into all kinds of weird stuff, but those are kind of just general ongoing things, like, you know, UFOs and exotic physics theories and just all that kind of stuff. Because I've been on this kick of writing the newsletter and all that, I've gone down the internet marketing rabbit hole once again. I go through these phases where I'm like ramping up in the past, you know, to work on trying to grow the show. I've gone through these phases of researching this stuff, and so I have like different sort of Notion documents that I've created at different phases.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a mess in that regard, but I've definitely been researching stuff like how to grow a newsletter. I've been deep diving on like running Facebook ads, which I don't know if I want to do, but I just want to know. I feel like I need to know enough about them to make the decision of whether or not I want to run them. You know what I mean? Like, so there's been a lot of those kind of research trails where I'm doing a lot of exploratory searching on, okay, what are I'm casting a wide net and trying to figure out like what should I be focused on right now.
Yeah.
And while I'm like continuing to create content.
Yeah.
So that's been my obsession. Like I've been falling asleep at night, like planning out like marketing campaigns and content for the newsletter. Like as I'm trying to fall asleep, I can't shut my brain off.
Yeah, I feel that. I end up doing that when I get like really into, which I'm going to be doing soon, getting into like the cycle of releasing new music, and I'm wanting to do that on a more regular basis. So like obviously there's a lot of marketing in that. So I completely relate to that interest for sure, because it can so quickly become an obsession, and it's a never ending thing.
Yep. All right. Next segment. Let's talk about whether or not fives can be expressive or outgoing. I think we're debunking that myth that we can't
Right
be
now.
just by showing up here. Yeah, right now.
Yeah, right now.
And
Yeah.
the reason why I picked this, there's a story behind
God,
it.
here we go. We're gonna spill some tea, huh? Bring the tea.
I
today.
mean, yeah, I'm not going to call out anyone directly, but I created a video a couple of weeks ago just announcing that I got laid off and that I was excited about it because it means I'm going to be a full-time content creator, and then I'm launching the newsletter and all of that. And
which admittedly sounds terrible for a 5. Like,
yeah,
being a content creator. I mean, I don't know. Is anybody here a content creator?
If you don't have all of the context,
yeah,
like of my background and how I got to where I am, like I get that. I get that. But I made the, I'll call it a mistake, of posting the video in a group on a certain social platform that shall not be named, and just got a lot of frankly dumb comments.
Yeah. Here's a clue. It's the platform that everybody always trolls in comments. It's just what it's become.
So basically, everyone started, or all these, like, it wasn't everyone, it's like a small group of people, but they started piling on of like saying that I'm not a 5. Like
which
there's
we
no way
talked
I could
about
be
before.
a 5.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, it's because like I'm expressive, and I am, you know, I'm communicating well, which I'm having a hard time doing right now. And I tried to I made the mistake of taking the bait. That was my mistake. Normally I just ignore all of that stuff, but there was a comment and I just like responded LOL, and which was a bad idea. And then like they went off on this whole thing, and then I just started like poking holes in their argument, but there was no winning, and it was sucking my life energy.
Yeah.
And so I didn't keep up with, but the basic argument was that I didn't exude the energy of a 5, and that a 5 would never show up in the way, and the 5 would never show up in the way that I was showing up and be expressive and all of that. And what they didn't know is, like, you know, my years of performing on stage, like all of my career, like working really hard to get good at communicating because I had to for my career. Like I took improv classes, and I like have done like all these presentations and had to do, you know, talk. I had to figure out how to go from talking from like an engineer to like a CEO to like a support rep. Like that was my job, and communicating like complex topics in a simple way, and just all of the stuff that I've been doing for years and years and years, plus lots of coaching that I've paid for, and therapy, and, you know, being married to a 4 who wants to talk about feelings a lot. And it's just like all of this stuff that they didn't see. And they also didn't see me sitting in my car for 20 minutes just trying to ramp myself up to get to the point where I could turn on the camera. Like,
yeah,
they didn't see any of that. And the fact that like it was all very, very heavily edited, because it's just like a little,
that's what I'm saying. Don't they know we edit these things? Yeah, like come on.
And, you know, it took me like 20 minutes to get out a 90-second clip. Like there's, you know, like, and they didn't see any of that. They just like made this really, really snap judgment on who I am. But I think that this can happen with 5s, where as we start to grow, as we start to integrate, and we start to learn how to, you know, maybe show up a little bit more like an 8, or how to kind of leverage some of that 7 energy to help us be kind of more out there and a little more energetic. And we don't come across as a stereotypical five. Like I don't come across as a stereotypical five a lot of times when I am, you know, in some sort of like performance role, whether it's in my job or whether it's, you know, online. And and so in some regards, like I kind of take it as a compliment that they don't think I'm a five. Even though I'm just annoyed by their arguments, because I think they're dumb. The arguments, not them. I'm making no judgment on these people. But all that to say that like I think it's really important that we debunk this myth that fives can't be expressive or outgoing, because when we are very passionate about something, or when we have developed a confidence in something through, you know, learning and doing over a long period of time, like we can show up differently than how people might expect. That doesn't mean we're not going to go home and like, you know, become a hermit and not want to talk to anyone for a day, which is happens to me quite a bit. But I can show up, and I know that you can too, if you want to share about that.
Yeah, well, and it's like, too, you got to think too, like all these people that consider themselves Enneagram experts, and they all have their own podcasts, and they all have their own shows and whatever, but how often do they portray fives as only the unhealthy version? Like, it's like everything that we've ever heard about fives always sounds so sad and so dark and so lonely and like we all are. I'd say I would go as far as say I'm sure all fives are there sometimes. Like we get there easier maybe than some other types, but we can have an existential crisis in an afternoon. You know, it's like it's not hard, but yeah, I agree. I think that I've experienced more growth in the last 4 years than probably the last 20 years before that. Like it's been so fast, and it takes something that I think that people forget about fives is how even though we live in our heads so much, I feel like fives tend to be, most of the time, at least in my experience with fives, my other friends that I've had that are fives, like a lot of times we have the ability, because we're so observational, that we can turn that in on ourselves. If we ever learn how to do that and turn it in ourselves, which we all probably strive to do, it makes sense. We want to be in tune with ourselves, and whether it's a control thing or whatever. And I think that turning that ability, that skill that we have that comes natural to us to observe and tear things apart and figure out puzzles, and and of course I'm stereotyping, but like that's at least how I am, and I turn that in on myself, and it's hard to look away after that. Like I can't not look at myself. I can't not be constantly aware of like what's going on internally, and why did I say that? Wow, I reacted so hard to that, way more than I felt like I should. What made that happen? And so then I just start digging and digging and digging. And like, it's like, it's easy for me to say sometimes too, that it's like I do the work of therapy without the therapist there. Like in some ways I do that. And I think we can all probably relate to that a little bit. I still very much think that I should go back to therapy, because I think actually therapy could be maybe we find success in therapy if we really fully commit faster than some others because of that. Like we're already on board, like, yeah, I'm digging, let's go, And I think that that's something that I've definitely experienced over the last few years. And it's just like, I'm doing now what I spent most of my life thinking I would never be able to do, or feel like, I don't know how good I am at it, but I'm definitely like feeling more natural at it. And I never thought that that's something that I would feel. So I think I think it's easy. Like I meet people all the time where I tell them I'm a five, and if they, we talk about the Enneagram, and they're like, wow, I never would have thought you were a five. Well, you don't really know me. Like I'm in performance mode right now, just talking, and that's what I did all day today for work. So yeah.
And we've talked so much, like on the podcast too. We've had to get comfortable with expressing ourselves, and at first it, like we developed hacks that like for instance our first episode when we recorded, we told ourselves we don't ever have to air this, and so it was really easy, and we could just kind of be there and hang out. Yeah, I know. It was a thinly veiled lie. I think if we could kind of like to put a bow on this, I would say what I would ask these people to do is to get curious about, let's assume for a second that I mean, I know I'm a 5, but let's assume for a second that I could 100% prove to them that I'm a 5. Like, what would that actually mean to them? Right?
Yeah.
What is it within them that has this strong reaction to seeing someone like me or another 5 who is showing up in the world in a way different than what they think is possible for them? What does that mean to them? Because and get curious about that, because in my experience, because I mean, if you knew me 10 years ago, there would be no question that I was a 5. I mean, Cody, you knew me 10 years ago. There was no question that I was a 5. Like there was, I was very, very different. And I think that when you come into contact with someone who contradicts the stories that you're telling yourself about what's possible for you, there's a defense mechanism that's built in that makes you want to reject that immediately. And because what that means is that if that's true, if that, through self-work that I could be different or be more of who I am, then that removes my excuses to stay where I am. And so I think that that's where a lot of this comes from. That sort of knee-jerk reaction is that they see people like us who are 5s who can show up in the world differently. Maybe it's a way that they want to show up, but they don't want to admit it to themselves that they want to show up that way. Or maybe they think it's not possible for them. And then they see other people showing up that way who are like them. And it makes them question, all of the stories they tell themselves about why it's not possible, which means that then they don't have excuse. It's like they're responsible for their own growth, for their own journey. I think that that's where a lot of this is coming from.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter what you say. Like you said in the beginning, it's always been about just ego. People think they know, and then put the worst stereotypes on us.
Yeah, there's that too. All right, so is it time for Would You Rather?
I think so. Yeah, let's do it.
All right. I'm going to ask this question, and you guys put in the chat too what your response is. Would you rather have unlimited knowledge but no one to share it with, or deep relationships but struggle to learn new things? Hit the comments. Which one? Cody, you can think about it for a second.
I think I already know.
Think you know?
Yeah, because I think that it's the first one. I don't know. No, sorry. I think that I've lived the first one a lot in my life. Not the unlimited knowledge part, but like having so much knowledge about something no one cares about kind of feels like having a lot of knowledge that you can't talk to anybody about with. Did I say that? You know what I'm trying to say. That you have no one to share it with. So I'm going to go with the deep relationships. I'd rather do that one because knowledge ain't everything.
Yeah. Heidi says unlimited knowledge. I'm a bad person.
Hey, I mean, I get it. No judgment from me.
Not at all. No, I mean, this was one where I had to sit with this for a little bit because I'm with you. I've been in that space where it was a quest for knowledge, but I had no meaningful connection in my life.
Yeah.
And so the knowledge didn't really do much for me. And at the same time, like we at our cores as 5 just love that quest for knowledge and truth. For sure. And learning new things. And that's so core to who we are that it's a hard one for me. I would choose the deep relationships, partially because I've already learned a lot. So like I could like become satisfied with that. But also because, to your point, like if you don't have anyone to share it with, it isn't nearly as valuable. And so, on the flip side, Michael says unlimited knowledge because I don't think I'd be truly able to connect deeply if I couldn't learn new things.
Yeah,
that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Oh, that's a whole other conversation. That's true. I get that actually.
Ooh, well, let me think about this for a second, because I would ooh, so what that would require is to find other ways to connect outside of our default, because that's how we tend to connect as fives, is through like a shared appreciation of certain types of knowledge. All right. And so it would require us to develop other ways to connect, which is not impossible. Like I've definitely learned to do that, but also there would be a part of me that would be really sad. Yeah, in that way.
I think too, just to like challenge that notion a little bit, like push back on it a little. I think that I feel like our collective downfall in conversation is how easily we can revert, especially in an anxious situation. Like, at least that's what I can say for me. Revert back to those pieces of knowledge to share, in as like a defense mechanism, because like small talk is forever terrifying. I think it doesn't come necessarily very natural to, I'd say, the average five to pick up and try to learn and adapt the skills of like what meaningful connection looks like, which takes both sides, and learning how to like, listen and absorb other people's information and be able to like, because like we have a friend who is an expert at saying, you say anything at all, and he goes, that's interesting, let's dig into that, and 5 hours is gone, and he has uncovered every possible nugget of information about that thing about you and everything else, right? He knows things about my mom I didn't know. And because he was there 2 days before our wedding and got to spend some time with my parents at their house, and he got to know things from them. He got things out of them that I've never gotten out of them in my entire life. And so I think that there's a level, and of course you can go too far that direction too, right? And it still is to kind of become self-serving. And I think that for me at least, it's a constant, ever-growing challenge, ever ongoing challenge, hopefully ever growing, that I'm trying to adapt to being able to get into a conversation and not be afraid to just sit in that silence or sit in that space of like, we're both vulnerable, and maybe I don't have anything to talk about with you. Like, what happens when I run out of something to talk about? And that's a subconscious thought I have all the time. Like, what, with my job today, I had a supplier in town, and they were riding with me in the car all day long, a stranger I've never met, in a small space for 8 hours, like 6 hours, seeing accounts over and over again, right? That's a terrifying thing for a five. And it doesn't really bother me anymore, because what I've learned is you say 1-2 things and then you just let it go. And they also are anxious about the situation, so they start just spilling things. So then I'm like, oh, that's cool. Well, where'd you learn that? And so I've learned through my job in many ways I've learned how to adapt to that situation and not feel like I have to be armed with all this information going into a conversation. And I found more meaningful conversation or more meaningful connection with people by not having all the answers to something. So that's the only way I would push back on that. But I respect the viewpoint for sure. I get that. And that's definitely like a knee-jerk reaction for a five, I think, because that's definitely how I would feel when I first read the question. I was like, that's kind of how I thought about it too.
I can't remember if I've shared this in a past episode or not, but Amy reminded me of this the other day. So when we just started hanging out before we officially started dating, we were hanging out, talking like every day for like a month. And then I asked her out on a date, and I think it was like a Friday or Saturday. And I asked her out on the date to go out on the next Friday. So like a week away. Yeah. And she said yes. And then I didn't talk to her for the whole week. Like, I didn't send any text. Like, to her, it looked like I just completely ghosted her. And she's like, what is going on? And it was because I was so afraid of not having stuff to talk about when we went on our date that I wanted it to build up.
Oh my God, that's so good. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever talked about that, but that's good. I like that. That's for sure.
And And so I'm with you. Like there's always that that anxiety of, am I going to have stuff to talk about?
Yeah.
And one of the things too that I've learned is that we do have a superpower in that when we kind of remove that anxiety, we're intensely curious people.
Mm-hmm.
And so as long as you can stay curious, like, and you, and I think that that's what our friend that you mentioned is really good
Mm-hmm.
at, is that when you stay in that curious state, you'll just, like, questions to unpack things will just come to you.
Yeah.
And in that, it's like there's a kind of back to what Michael was talking about here. You don't have to share information to connect. Then you're going through like a co-process of self-discovery in the moment, and you're connecting in that way, which can be like a much deeper form of connection when
Mm-hmm.
you're staying present and curious in that. And so, yeah, that's what I've learned. Am I an expert at it? No. But I'm way better than when I was, 5-10 years ago, for sure.
Yeah, and I also like to Irene's comment here. I agree with you on that. I think there is a.
Well, you have to say what it is, because
Oh right,
some
is this
people
not
listen
on
to
everything?
this and not.
Oh right, right. You were
Right.
absolutely right. This is also going to be audio. So it says, I definitely think that I could connect with someone over something feelings based, but if I couldn't bring knowledge into the equation, I feel like I was holding back a part of myself. I agree with that to some degree, because like I don't necessarily feel the equivalent connection the other person would feel if I was being that way. Also, too, I just want to push back on my own point and say that our friend does it and he does it so well. It is 9 times out of 10. Just thinking about it makes me tired. Like I get so exhausted and drained in those conversations sometimes. And I'll sit at his house until like 2 a.m. talking with him, and it's great. And I leave. Sometimes I leave like energized, like that was a really great time. And then I leave telling myself it was a great time. But I don't want to talk for days. And so to think about being that way to that level with anyone is probably unrealistic. I'm never going to be that way, right? Like I can get the conversation going, but like I also am 100% guilty of always finding ways to steer the conversation to where I know something that I'm passionate about and I want to talk about that. And I feel like a lot of that is less these days because I feel like I know everything about something, and more because I just want to share that passion with somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's my way of connecting. And so I feel like, kind of speaking to what you're saying there, I mean, I feel like that's kind of my version of it. Like I think what it is it's like, we want to share that passion. We want to go that deep with somebody and them be just as excited about it as we are. Or we're also testing them to see if they are. And if they're not, then maybe we won't connect that far and you're going to go in this box, And so I think that's definitely part of it too.
That's why Would You Rathers are fun, because I don't want either of these things.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. It's always like, do you want this one or this one? Neither.
All right. So before we jump into this last segment, I just kind of for my own sort of seeking of knowledge and truth, I would love for if you listen to past episodes, or if not, if this is your first time listening to this, if you enjoy this format, because we really want that feedback, because we're kind of doing this in real time, testing stuff and experimenting and seeing what we enjoy, seeing what you guys enjoy. So any and all feedback is very welcome. So just pop a comment in, let us know if you like this format for an episode. We're not, like I said, we're not going to do every episode like this, but our live ones we'll probably have some sort of structure like this with different segments. And we might swap some out. We might keep some the same. So any feedback there is appreciated. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, Cody, last segment here is growth versus comfort, which is share something that you're trying to get better at, even though your 5 instincts fight against it.
I think because I already was thinking about this point before we got here, because I can see them on my screen, I kind of already delved into it a little bit in pieces. I think that one thing that I'm trying really hard to be good at or get better at is learning how to feel my emotions fully in the moment and feel them with other people, which is something that I don't think, we were talking about all this growth 4 years ago. In the last 4 years, 4 years ago, there was no way I couldn't even comprehend doing this. I wouldn't even know what it looks like, when we
Yep.
started this podcast, I did not know how to feel feelings. I was fairly drunk every episode, like just to be able to get to that place where I could talk. And so, doing it was such a challenge, and I just couldn't think about it. And so it was like this far off, distant thing, and I didn't even want to do it. Really, it's like I wasn't in that place. And so the more I've grown, the more I've done some chunks of time here and there where I've had some good therapy sessions, and obviously like being in a committed long-term relationship where you're existing with another human being who is insanely empathetic, and it's just full 100% empath. And so it's in learning how to validate other people's feelings constantly, and because I've gotten to this place where I it's I don't know, it's I've gotten to this place where I feel like I can by constantly, I don't ever want to invalidate anybody else's feelings, right? Like that's where I think that we oftentimes go wrong in conversation, just humans in general, is that we want to invalidate how somebody else feels. And it's like, how they feel is not about us. It's not about anything. It's their deal. Like, and they're allowed to feel it. And, if I played a part in those feelings and they're bad, then I want to figure out how to, talk about it and not fix it, as a 5. And so, but constantly doing that over the last, 5 years ish, and really trying to be better at it, I think has caused me to again look inward and go, okay, well, what about my feelings? Can I validate my own feelings? Can I start feeling them fully? Because I've never been the type of guy who thought that guys shouldn't have feelings. That's the weird part. Like, sure, it's like ingrained in me, right? But it's not. It's ingrained in me because like my dad never really showed emotion when I was a kid, and I'm sure his dad didn't either. I'm sure, and it was just a cultural thing, societal, and so I think that was ingrained in me accidentally, and they probably weren't even really aware of it because they also, like my parents, to some degree, I guess, are all about feelings. They also have grown a lot in this regard, so I feel like it's kind of been a family unit growth, but I've started to, what I'm challenging myself to do and to focus on is allowing space for my own feelings, and then regardless of who the other person is, being willing to share or feel those feelings with them, right? Like that's the hardest part. Like I think that's the key for me, because it's one thing to be able to, like see something in a movie or a TV show or something that really strikes a chord within you, and then feel those feelings, right? And then explore those feelings, because that's what, film, cinema is supposed to do. It's supposed to evoke feelings and make us look inward and feel those things and appreciate that lived experience. And I think that that's something that I've always stopped myself from doing and trying to hide it, or trying to, not cry or not do those things. And I've never been the type of guy who thought that guys shouldn't cry or anything like that. So it's weird that I've always been like, why don't I want to do these things? And so I think that's something that I've been trying to do definitely a lot more, and let myself be vulnerable, I think is really the key there. And not hold it to other people to have to reciprocate that or feel that too. Like that, because I can easily also make excuses and say, well, what if they're not like that deep of a friend, or maybe I don't really have friends I can share that with part of myself with, or, what if they leave or whatever. And it's like, at the end of the day, just like not invalidating other people's feelings, I shouldn't invalidate my own feelings by making excuses for other people. It doesn't matter. It's not about them. It's about me. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, mine is similar. I am I've been exploring, one of my fears going into this season of my life was volatility, and how to continue to move forward when I feel that volatility, and specifically emotional volatility. And because when I had a steady job, I could have hard weeks, but that didn't affect my paycheck, like,
Mm.
and I could talk to I had a really good relationship with my boss, and so we could talk about it, and like he would understand, and now it's, there was a fear coming into this of, well, when I have a particularly volatile week and I also need to get stuff done that, that is income, that is, my income is dependent on, how am I supposed to do that? And,
Mm.
and so I've been practicing a lot, letting myself feel things. Yes. But also, letting myself in those moments stay curious, because one thing that I've experienced, like last week I experienced a lot of emotional flooding, emotional overwhelm. Tuesday and Wednesday were just completely wrecked for me. And Monday too, because Monday I was traveling back from seeing my parents, and Tuesday I found, and it was like I started the week, and then I planned out the week. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get so much done this week, and here's everything, all the stuff I want to do, and then Tuesday I found out some news that was very emotionally charged for me, and I was overwhelmed emotionally, and then Wednesday had a conversation that triggered a flashback to a very traumatic memory for me, and that I didn't realize that I hadn't processed through. And so like I felt it in my body as I was reliving it, remembering details of how I felt. And it was very, very overwhelming. And in the past, what would happen was I would be so uncomfortable with that I would retreat and disengage, and not let myself feel those things. Yes, but also like not like avoid processing through them, so that then I would go and try to find things that would help me avoid that stuff. And then I would shame myself for doing that, and then I would just go into this sort of shame anxiety spiral. And that's something that I've been working on for a while, but I've learned to trust myself more, and last week was a great example of where I could, I trusted myself and I showed up for myself, and that went like Tuesday, Wednesday, I just let myself like be, and as much as I could feel that, and let it kind of move through my body. And normally like that would have just like completely wrecked my whole week. And then it was like I let it work its way through me on Tuesday and Wednesday. And rather than like shaming myself for not getting all the stuff on my to-do list done from the first 3 days of the week, I sat down and I said, okay, I have 2 days left. I have everything that I set out that I wanted to do. It's okay if I don't get it all done, but what I can do is, maximize these next 2 days to make as much progress as I can, and then be satisfied with that. Be satisfied that like I showed up and I did the best that I could. And even just saying that in the past there's been this voice that's like, that's just an excuse to not make progress on something, right? But instead, it really was like the best that I could do that week. A lot, some things happened that was hard, and I would use the excuse of getting stuff done to also avoid processing these things. And so I chose to prioritize my own mental and emotional health in the first half of the week. And that actually set me up to where Thursday, Friday, I was like insanely productive. and I did get most of the stuff done that I wanted to get done last week. But that would not have happened if I hadn't sort of worked past those initial 5 instincts to retreat, and then let myself process through those things.
Yeah, that's great. You see, Michael says, try this affirmation on. Taking care of myself is the most productive thing I can do today. You know what? I
Yeah.
love those days.
Yeah.
I've learned to not
Yep.
have. I don't make excuses for days where I do nothing, and especially when I know I need it. It's just like I can take a quick temperature of how I'm feeling, emotionally, and go, no, I don't have the emotion for this right now. Can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one thing that I'm learning kind of in real time is that just saying that before taking care of myself is the most productive thing I can do today. Um, it, at least for me, I now can say that and not feel a ton of anxiety around it, because before it was like when I had a job and I was accountable to a company and a boss, like even if the boss was understanding, I couldn't say, hey, I just need to not get anything done today, and because I'm in this emotional state, right?
Right.
I
Yeah.
felt like I couldn't say that, and which meant that I had all this anxiety of like, and this pressure that I was putting on myself of I I have to get things done because they're paying me
Yep.
to be in the office or whatever,
Yeah.
and but in reality, like, I'm not productive at all, and the longer I stay in this state of putting that pressure on myself, the longer this is going to last. But like and so it's just really hard to kind of pull myself out of that. So I'm learning that. I think a lot of this too is just it's learning about myself, and also learning. Well, I mean, when I knew, which was like I'm doing something now that is much more aligned with who I am, and and I'm experiencing more. And then and this isn't just necessarily like a job versus no job, because I ran my own business for 3 years, and aside from maybe like 3 to 6 months, I felt the same thing. It was just like it was like I was my own worst boss in that scenario. But like now I'm approaching everything completely differently than I was before. And I'm letting myself just be me and enjoy life. And it's like, I can take 10 minutes and go play with the kids in the middle of the day. I don't have to always be trying to produce things or learn
Yeah.
new things or whatever. I there That's how I've fallen into traps in the past of being very neglecting those other parts of myself, because were parts that I wasn't comfortable with.
Yeah.
And so now I'm prioritizing my relationships and my health and things like that, and learning what that actually looks like in the day to day. So it's been it's been a bit of a roller coaster, but it's also been really fun and enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
All
that's
right.
all the
Well,
things.
this was fun. I really enjoyed hanging
It
out with
was fun.
everybody.
Yeah.
I'm glad we tried this new structure. Like I said, let us know in the comments what you guys think. And until next time.
Well, and if you haven't joined the community, come join the community, because this is being posted everywhere, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So if you're not in our community,
community. Yeah.
Enneagram5.com/community. I'm going to post my February Writers link there. I meant to do it earlier in the month, but I'm going to do it and see if I can get everybody to give me like your favorites, because I would really love that. I wrote a song in there that's literally a 5 song. It's like a theme song. It's called "I Was Right and That's the Problem." And it's great. When I listened back to it, I was like, oh my God, this is a 5. This is just about a 5.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so go there and we'll hang out and continue talking, and you can help us grow this thing the way that you want it.
Yeah. And also go subscribe to the newsletter, Enneagram5.com/newsletter. And I'm excited about, like, I've already got the next couple of weeks the drafts written on those, and I'm like, as I'm going through, I'm like, oh man, this is really good. Like, I'm excited to share this with everybody. So go check that out as well. All right.
Yep.
Until next time, take care, everybody.
See you later.